Hello, Taurus Rising, to your 2025 forecast, according to me, Nicolas Polymenakos, Sparkles of Gold. I'll have some thoughts. I'll talk about some narratives here in the upcoming year. I'll give you some tips, some dates, a whole bunch of information. So let's start here in January. I want to talk about a specific planet that is fundamental and important in the beginning of the year, which is Mars, the planet of action and of the will, and the will needing to take action in the world. It's kind of the engine of the chart. If you look at anybody's chart, you'll go see where Mars is and how it functions. It's been going backwards in a retrograde cycle since the end of 2024. It started its backwards motion in the sign of Leo, a fire sign, and when it gets to January 6th, it moves all the way back into the sign of Cancer, a water sign. And this particular theme, when we deal with retrogrades, we deal with reviews, redefinition, rewiring, right? And Mars can't take action the way it wants, so it has to do things differently. And so while it tinkers away and gets frustrated at times, this will happen in the way you actually think and process. Also, narrative-wise, it can happen around where you live, in the communities that are very close to you, the friends that are close to you, the way that you construct your words and sentences. These are all typical situations that deal with the short areas around you. They could be your neighbors, etc. On a deeper level, it actually could deal with like what happens in your dreams. Regardless, there is some sort of review happening there. And I think for someone like you that moves at a certain type of pace, depending on the Taurus that you are, now you're going to people get a bad rap, give bad rap to Taurus because they say move slow, right? Well, there's good reason. There's reason for that, right? We know the reasons why, but sometimes we have to get off the couch, that one has to move. I think here, the way one moves in their immediate surroundings, for you Taurus risings, this is what's under review, and this is something for you to reestablish and reconfigure in your life. Again, it could happen with your neighbors, your siblings, what's immediate around you, the park down the street, but a lot of times too, it's how you're constructing the sentences in your brain, how your thought process is happening, not the deeper contemplative stuff per se, but more just of how you formulate your thoughts, and that is in relation to what's around you. And maybe some things around you or certain situations like that need to change in order for that to run on all cylinders. That's going to happen from January 6th all the way to April 17th and 18th, and at that point Mars is moving forward on trying to be on all cylinders at that point, and moves into the next sign of Leo again. And I think this really starts to show something in your world, because for like 2 months then you're going to have a lot of action happen in your area in your life that deals with home and family and memories and lineage and foundations. Could be parents too. That will be in play here when we get after April 18th into the end of May. Okay, so just so you understand the movement that's happening there. In the beginning of February, we have a planet that has been going backwards since fall and winter of 2024. That planet that's been retrograde is Jupiter, the planet of expansion, hope, optimism, abundance, right? It wants to do that. It hasn't been able to do what it wants to there in the sign of Gemini, the sign of the mind and thinking. This particular part of your world where Jupiter will start to inch forward again happens in your money and resources place in your life, how you create your own personal resources, and maybe finally we start to get an outlook about how that can move forward after a massive review process where it's discipline has been showed to you and required from you. And I think some of this boundaries and stuff that kind of have been messing with the way you generate resources or how you can had to do with your relationship to other people who support your hopes or wishes and dreams and projects. And maybe some of those people aren't there like they used to before, or there's new people coming in, or that place in your life needs to be revamped and cleaned up. Whatever the case is, there's some sort of like temporary rule set that's coming from that area of your life that affects your money making or resource creation part of your world. And in February, slowly, that could have the feeling of slowly moving all the way into the beginning of June. And hopefully by then, there is some sort of a payoff or abundance, but only if you adhere to strict guidelines and take responsibility in the areas of money in your life and those that you might be connected to that help support the generation or a regeneration of resources in your life. They kind of go hand in hand, and it requires discipline and moving at a slow pace. But February starts to move a little bit forward with that. Speaking of February, when we get into March is when this eclipse story starts to kick into play here. And eclipses happen in pairs, every 2 weeks from each other, a solar eclipse and a lunar eclipse, and then 6 months later it happens again. That's how the cycles move. These eclipses that bring in new stories and want to push away old stories and flush them away, it starts to happen in the signs of Virgo and Pisces here this year and all the way into 2026. And what this means for you is the part of your chart that deals with how you creatively express yourself, how you connect to the pleasurable things in your life. There is something that needs to be recycled or regenerated in that place. And some of these eclipses will want to push old stories away there, and you have to be aware of what those things are and know what needs to be recycled or put out to the trash, metaphorically. Could be the types of ways that you created in the past that do not work anymore. It could be even tied into like your sexuality too, like sex, the essence. This is called in astrology like fifth house stuff, right? The way we do pleasurable pursuits. Sex is one of those ways. The other ways is through creative expression and the creative arts of things. A lot of that stuff will be under analyzation and review, and something needs to go there. That narrative and story kicks in spring, but it's really there all year, and will also show itself here in September too, when we have eclipses at September 7th and 2 weeks later is September 21st. This will affect these parts of your chart. The interesting thing about all this is you could get some help from those in your life that support your creativity or who want to. And they might have a piece of advice for you on how to do this. So please be open to listening to situations like that this year. But know during eclipse areas, it's very in your face and very poignant, this areas of your life, your creative expressive life and how you do it and the tools you use. And then those who supposedly support your hopes and wishes and dreams as a community that you're part of, your patrons, and the people who are aligned with you. That is pretty much a big theme for you this year. During that eclipse area in your life, or that happens in March and April, another planet, Venus, that deals with the things that are with beauty and love and relationships and the way we go find pleasure too, and in a sense too, like resources in the feminine, or resources too, and the feminine. That planet will be in Aries at that point, and it will stop and go backwards also. And eventually, when it leaves Aries, it goes back to the previous sign of Pisces. There again will be hitting the part of your chart that deals with those who supposedly support your wishes, hopes, and dreams. And something needs to be figured out in that area. Now we have multiple planets and multiple astrological transits that are touching this place and have been touching this place here for a while. At the same time, while Venus is doing this, Mercury will go retrograde in Aries and move back into this area, and there'll be a lot of communicating or miscommunication or some sort of tweaking that happens in this area where this area of like hopes, wishes, and dreams is really about the triumphs and things that you envision in your life, and a lot of times how community supports you, or friends and family and those who support you. Who does? Is it flowing on all cylinders? Is there something that you need to change in that area so it does eventually bring you to the triumphs that you want, right? And so we have a recalibration phase happening there all during March and in April. And farther down there after that, then many planets go into a very contemplative place in your life, a rehabilitative place for the latter part of spring into the beginning of summer. I'll give you hints on what that is. I think here on, or not I think, but on March 30th, the planet Neptune, which has been in Pisces for more than a decade now, for a huge period of time, will seem to leave this community place that I'm talking about and enter in a more contemplative realm in your chart where we deal with isolation and protection and needing to be alone per se, but I don't think it really kicks in that way. I also see that Saturn has been in the sign of Pisces for the last couple of years, wanting to bring discipline and restructuring to the community place and your friends and what you're involved in. Do you see the theme here now? Do you see the amount of narrative and storyline that's going here, especially at the beginning of the year? It's happening here. Saturn will temporarily leave this place and move forward into Aries starting the end of May. So Neptune and Saturn move away from Aries or Pisces and moves into Aries, right? What happens is, though, they will stop later down in the year and go backwards into your house of community and area. The friends, family, or the friends, supporters, patrons, that whole thing is going to come back in the fall for you again. So you see chapters here in the spring and in the fall where there's more to review and to revamp and recycle and tweak in the area of your world that eventually could bring you triumph when it comes to your hopes, wishes, and dreams. Okay, so there's a lot there, but we're trying to keep it simple. In June, the planet Jupiter, which I mentioned earlier, was in the sign of Gemini, affecting your money creation place. It will leave there, hopefully with some payoff that you invested hard work in. And in June, will enter in the sign of Cancer for a year. And this goes back to the place of your immediate surroundings, your neighbors, your siblings, your friends, the short journeys that you create around you, and how your brain fires off. So I started off this forecast talking about this. And I think if you've done the work from January into April that deals with this area in your life, I think you start to see some benefits to come your way here. And maybe there is some sort of like different surroundings that are immediately around you. A different neighbor moves in down the hall, or you have some movement that comes through with like association with your neighbors or siblings in your life, or you decide to take some shorter journeys and check out more about more around your immediate surroundings of where you live, a new park that you found, a new yoga studio, etc. These little things that are around you, you want to pay attention to these things here when it comes to June of 2025, and that narrative will bring a slow story that lasts for a whole year. Okay, I think this is pretty good in the end, as long as you take care of things in the beginning of the year. I also want to mention here, when I talked about immediate surroundings, I want to make a side note here in this video. I know that many of you Taurus risings have been dealing with possible wounds, hidden wounds in your life, and wherever you have found a safe space to be where you're alone, or things that represented a place to be alone, rehabilitative places, places of isolation and contemplation, maybe you've been dealing with some sort of illness or some sort of afflictions that they don't feel right, and you've had this place in your life where you've gone to lick your wounds. And I think this is in the background, but I feel like there's some movement happening there. And it's really, in my mind, I think in the summertime and the second part of the year, you might make the connection of that to like maybe then start to come out of that place into your like close immediate surroundings, the exploration around there that can actually bring another piece of medicine into that area. You can only hide out so long when it comes to showing your wounds or what they are, and sometimes you got to take a walk down the block to the community acupuncture place, or you got to meet somebody else who can help you out and have this understanding and with the exchange and listening that happens with human beings when it comes to things that have hurt us or do hurt. we want to make sure that we communicate about that this year. And that's what I'm really getting at. And that's a little secret, something I thought I'd throw you away. It might not make sense astrologically, but I'm translating for you. So another interesting thing you should pay attention to here and just acknowledge, and this is one of the bigger things I think here, that will set you off and end a story eventually at the end of 2025 and into 2026. And it has to do with the planet called Uranus. If you don't know, Uranus represents the surprise, the unpredictability, the upheaval, the brilliant things that come out of the blue, the insights that come, the different ways and unorthodox ways to do things. And whenever it is in a sign, it takes about 7 years for its progress there. Now, it's been in your sign of Taurus since 2018. And I don't have to tell you, since 2018, along with major eclipses that happen in your sign and a couple other things, how much has changed in how you interact and how you see the world. You got forced, metaphorically, off the couch to change some stubborn ways about you. And, when you're dealing with a planet like Uranus that brings surprise, it's like it brings fear. Some Tauruses, they can't deal with what's set in stone, right, and what's comfortable. But Uranus comes in and has to uproot some things that are comfortable that do not work anymore. And its main goal in the end, and if you could take this outlook, is to liberate wherever it is and to bring something new so things progress. So for you, Taurus Rising, you've been dealing with the storyline. Have you made the changes that you've known you intuitively seen? Some of the surprises that have come your way, have you learned to roll with it and accept that you must move forward? And if you have, I think the second part of this year will show you something. And Uranus, as it moves in the summertime, will leave Taurus and go into Gemini for only several months. And after summertime in the northern hemisphere and winter in the southern, it will go back into the sign of Taurus for the rest of 2025 and the beginning of 2026. And it's only then when it's finally going to leave the sign of Taurus since 2018. So what I'm telling you is, don't miss the clues, the little insights that will come here in the summertime and into the fall and winter. Don't blow it off. And if you recognize there's still some things that you're stubbornly holding on to, and I'm talking about when it comes to your body, your physical health, how you take care of your body, the energy in your body, the way you relate to the world in general with your body, mind together. There's been a revamping process going on there, and you have to, don't ignore it. Move with it. Take in what that new storyline that's coming in. And once you do, I feel like when we get into 2026 and farther down the line, there will be payoffs for you there, and you will understand truly what this whole upheaval thing was all about. Again, I think many of you have already done the work because you've had eclipses happen to you in your sign and Uranus and other things, right? But we don't want to lose our awareness. And sometimes Taurus gets really tunnel vision and only focuses on one thing, which is a benefit to get projects done. But sometimes you got to open it up and look. And if there's that certain something that comes in, that insight, that certain surprise that comes into your world, embrace it, roll with it, and wield it. That's kind of a theme that will pop in here at the later part of the year. As I round up the overall something, obviously there's more to all of this and more transits this year, but I want to talk about two lunations, a new moon and full moon, that are important for you. One is the new moon in Taurus that will happen on April 21st at 7 degrees. This is a rambunctious, possibly conflicting, tension-filled new moon for you because Mars will be involved, throwing fire at you, or you're throwing fire out, and Pluto and Aquarius will be involved in this. And these other signs that are involved are fixed signs, so they will challenge you here on the new moon. It will challenge what your sense of home is, and also bring up themes of career. Career, home go hand in hand in astrology. These will be themes here when we deal with the April 21st, which is pretty much, we're in the spring and fall in Southern Hemisphere. A lot of what happens in new moon, seeds are planted. And 6 months later, on November 5th, the full moon in Taurus happens. And I think you'll be able to see what is occurred since 6 months ago, what has occurred for most of this year for you, and most importantly, all the lessons that you've learned since 2018 when it comes to your health, your vitality, your sense of self, and how you project and see the world and put yourself in the world. I think you get something of beauty that comes there at the end of the year, and you have to acknowledge this. You have to be real about it and accept that you're different at that point, and you've done all this work to get to a place like that. Celebrate it, okay? Listen, I know there's much more to talk about, or I missed this in the astrology forecast or not, but to sum it up, really think about this. Your money house, the first part of the year, and how you generate resources and the connection that you have to community that supports your wishes, the alliances that support your wishes. Maybe things change there. That story itself about what community is and your hopes, wishes, and dreams and who supports it and who's not, that is going through a major revamping process. Connected to that is how you creatively express yourself and how something needs to change in that place and something needs to be pushed away and flushed away so something new tools can come into how you generate creativity and how you express it, okay? You can go back to this video and check anything else out if you're new and you've made it this far. My name is Nicholas, Sparkles of Gold. Please hit the subscribe button. Hit the bell to know when I go live, because I will be going live sometimes 2-3 times a month talking about transits and other things for people who follow me. If you connect with some of the things I said, and listen, I'm a Venus-ruled person just like you, so I'm into Venus-y things. If you want some insight, you can always book a session with me here. Go to sparklesofgold.com or hit up all the links I have below, and you can see my scheduler and what I offer. In the meantime, my Venus-ruled friend, remember to pay attention to your senses and the information that the senses give you when you're intertwined with nature. That's where the real answers always lie, and you always have that secret conduit to all of that.